Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2021 Infiniti QX50. This is their most popular new crossover in the last year or two, and my first time driving it. So we're going to show it to you inside and out, take it for a test drive, and I'm going to tell you what I really think. Before the test drive, I always like to show you what we've got here. This is the 2021 QX50 Sensory trim grade, all-wheel drive. That puts our price at a pretty cool $55,000 and some change on the upper end of what you're going to spend on this particular vehicle. One more trim grade above this, so you can spend a little bit more. And I really think the biggest message I want to convey here is how much artistry has gone into this design. There was a time when I used to rip Infiniti's cars for looking like angry fish. I mean, they did. They all had this kind of like something that would be swimming around in the ocean, swallowing up plankton kind of look. And while it's still very animalistic in its features and in its facial design, I think it looks more like something that's going to be stalking other animals in the forest now. It's sporty, it looks like it's going to pounce. I like that. And really this is best appreciated in person. When you look at it from where I'm standing, you can see some nice sculpting in the hood that you can't see from the front. When you walk to another position, you're going to see an entirely different set of creases and shapes. I love that in automotive design. But the simple stuff right up front, a big chrome surround for a Infiniti DNA style grille. You see that on all of their vehicles. This has LED headlights, LED fog lights. The headlights, you'll notice right up close, have a cube design in them. I think that's pretty slick. Stepping away, 20-inch wheels on this trim grade, silver, and that color is carried into the mirror caps and some of the other trims you find on the side, down in the lower grille, and on the rear fascia. From this angle, the thing I really want to try to bring across is the fact that you really need to look at this vehicle in three-dimensional space, which is to say you need to get out and walk around it, because every time you get to a different position, you see some new shapes, you see some new creases, you see the way the light plays off of this. It's just very artistic. They spent a lot of time noodling the shape on this vehicle, and really right here is where the money's at. Look at that. You've got this dog leg design in the rear window. Now, Infiniti surely has a better terminology for that in terms of their designers coming up with what they called it. Dog leg is the best I could do, sorry, but I think this looks great. The way the body and the sculpture and the design, the shape, the spoiler, everything plays together so well here. And looking downward at the taillights, they tie into it very well too. LED taillights, of course. On the rear hatch, you see that piece of chrome that ties those together. This is, of course, a power-operated hatch. And look at the rear bumper down there at the bottom. Dual exhaust tips, very sexy looking, very sporty, and they're the real deal. They're not fakes like Audi gives us, big pieces of plastic with no air going through those at all. So I commend Infiniti for not only making it beautiful, but keeping it real. The interior of the QX50 is something that really has impressed me, and really the first time I sat in this, I just looked around at all of these beautiful shapes, very much like the exterior. It's artistic, it's sculpted, and really what hits me is the quality of the materials. All of this hand stitching that goes all the way down the console, across the dash, up on the top of the dash, these door panels, the materials like the aluminum trim. It all just really feels like I'm sitting in an expensive English luxury sedan. It's that good. Because I'm in the Sensory, almost every creature comfort available is here, and that goes to the climate controlled seats, both heated and ventilated. This beautiful two-tone leather is just rich and creamy looking, and these seats are comfortable. That's really the most important thing. The power adjustments offer all sorts of range that gets me where I want to be, and the tilt and telescoping steering wheel also power operated. As I look forward, I've got a great field of view. I'm looking over a very curvaceous hood. Pretty cool. A head-up display. This instrument cluster, sort of a Nissan corporate instrument cluster. You might find something very similar in some of the many other vehicles that the company builds, be it Infiniti or Nissan, but it's a high-quality instrument cluster. It's got a big digital screen in the center, 2 dials on the outboard sides. It's customizable. It looks good. The steering wheel, high quality switchgear, paddle shifters on it, and they feel good. Looking at the center console, I love the way this element just wraps down and continues into this in this sort of high fashion look. There's a roll top that exposes a little bit of a storage cubby down there in the bottom, your power ports, and 2 cup holders. I do have to complain on this just a little bit. These cup holders are hopelessly small. Soda cans or water bottles are about the most you're going to get in there. If you try to put 2 soda cups next to each other, they're going to squeeze together. Something I found in a number of Infiniti models, they just don't put a big priority on that. And this is definitely Japan home market. That is a spot for an ashtray down there and a cigarette lighter. Let's be honest, that's what they do over there in Japan. They smoke like chimneys. The center console also houses the shift selector. It's not a true shift lever, it's more of a joystick. It's beeping at me. And a button, sort of the modern way of doing it. The start button is also down there on the console along with the electric parking brake. The center console storage is pretty sizable. You could put 4 or 5 bottles of water down there. Right now I have my phone in here, and I'll point that out because there's not really a good place to put your phone anywhere in this interior when you're driving if you like to have it where it's accessible. A lot of new cars today have a dedicated spot for you to set your phone. Unless you have this roll top shut and you put it there, they just really didn't accommodate for not only large drinks but a cell phone. That's just another area of design that once you get away from all the beauty and luscious fashion of this interior, practicality could be increased just a notch or 2. The experience in the back seat is every bit as sumptuous and comfortable and beautiful to look at as it is up front. You've got all the materials on these rear door panels as you'd expect up front, and a few niceties like window shades on this particular trim grade. There is a fold down armrest in the center and lots of amenities down on the rear of the center console. This has the tri-zone climate control, so your rear seat passengers can actually set their own temperature back here, as well as having the power ports and vents in order to facilitate that temperature. I find that the seating position is actually very comfortable. It's high enough. My knees aren't perched up. I will point out that the legroom back here looks like it might be lacking just a little bit. These front seats are set for my height, about 5'8", with my tennis shoes on. And while my knees aren't up against the seats, if somebody big was sitting up front, I'd be feeling pretty tight back here. The upshot is that these seats do offer a slide adjustment, so you do have some range of adjustment in addition to the rear back rake. So that's a nice thing, expected in this class, I think. And as you'd expect also, these seats do fold down in a 60-40 split, giving you a nice big cargo area. Underneath the low floor though, if you're looking for your spare tire, there isn't one there. This does come with an inflator kit, but under there is some additional storage area that is very well laid out, I think. And up front you can also see that there is the Bose audio system taking up quite a bit of space back there. It's a pretty substantial audio system. And lastly, the other thing I'd point out about the rear seat cabin is that this panoramic roof that's in this vehicle really does give you a nice sense of space. This is a beautiful interior. I love the design. It's beautiful to look at. It's sumptuous. It's well made. Honestly, as far as how it looks, how it feels, and the comfort level, this is one of the best interiors in the business. I have to give it a 4 though, because there are some elements of practicality here which it really falls short on, and that has a lot to do with the daily living with it aspect. The cup holders, where do you put your phone? And for an SUV, I think it does need to have just a little bit more storage. So 4 out of 5 stars for the interior. Now that I've just praised this interior for all of its beauty and its wonderful design, we've got to talk about this infotainment system. This is actually a relatively new design from Infiniti. It's a 2-screen layout and something I also experienced recently in a Q60 sedan. And the thing about it is that from a standpoint of design, they wanted to give you more screen space and more practicality by giving you more screen to spread things out on so you don't have to page back and forth. The problem I've had with it this week is you still have to page back and forth from one thing to another. Climate, a different screen, then audio, then menu for all of your other things. And so when you're driving along, if you want to turn your fan speed up, there are buttons here, but you don't always know where that's at because the readout doesn't always reflect everywhere else. Sometimes you've got to go to the climate screen away from your audio. You're still paging screens even though they've given you 2 of them. The other problem that I've had with it that I don't really care for too much is down on the center console, you've got a puck and some buttons that control things on the top screen, yet you've got a touch screen down here. Not as intuitive, not as simple, not as, honestly, it's just about the competition. Lexus, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, they all now offer systems that are far better than this in terms of how easy they are to understand, how easy they are to use, and visibility. Even still that we have two screens, everything's crammed onto a tiny little screen here, and there's just a lot of paging around necessary to get to different things. So I sound like I'm railing on it. I'm just saying that the competition offers better, simpler, more effective ways of getting this done. The main thing that's good about this system is the Bose audio. Very good, but nonetheless, this infotainment system gets 3 out of 5 stars. All right, so going for a drive, the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? And 60. All right. So what we've got under the hood here is actually something quite interesting. This is Infiniti Nissan's VC turbo engine. VC meaning variable compression, and it's turbocharged. 2-liter engine. It has 268 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. And here it comes with a continuously variable transmission, a CVT. Not my favorite. But nonetheless, this is a fascinating engine to drive around in. It does put out some pretty good power, as you might have just noticed. It's competitive in this segment. Most of the vehicles that this competes against come with similarly sized and powered 4-cylinder turbocharged engines. The thing that really is different about this one is, though, because it has variable compression, which can vary to high to low, it makes different sounds depending on how you're driving it. So it can sound like a high-performance engine sometimes. Other times it kind of sounds quiet and it's very mild-mannered. And if you drive it hard, it tends to sound a little bit gnarly. It tends to get a little bit noisy, but for the most part around town, it behaves very well. And with all the variety of tuning they had to get through, valve timing, turbocharger timing with the wastegate, compression timing, and when to do it high and low, they had all these variables to deal with to make it all work. And I think it does. It's a revolutionary engine. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of it, other than to say there's a whole video about it down in the information section, a link to a video I did some time back on all the nuts and bolts of it. When it comes to fuel economy, this is rated at 22 city, 28 highway, and 25 mpg combined. If anything, this thing is just a slight bit thirsty. I got 23 mpg during my week with it. The CVT transmission, not my favorite, but this one is one of the better ones in the business. It works well. It has sort of a manual mode, and it has paddle shifters that give you the simulation of having some level of control. So I like that they've done that. The best part is they have not yet wrecked this vehicle with an engine auto start-stop system. That alone almost makes this worth buying, because so many of the competitors are getting polluted with that peace-destroying system. I hate them. So I'm pretty happy with this powertrain. Can it be better? Yes. It gets 4 out of 5 stars. Ride and handling is really the area that has really knocked my socks off with this car. Now, the design knocked my socks off, this interior knocked my socks off, but the handling, the overall driving experience, this thing is solid. This thing is buttoned down. I'm telling you, this chassis feels of quality. It feels solid, not a single rattle in it, not a vibration, nothing that has told me this thing is worth anything less than what they're charging for it. It is stiffly sprung. On this model, I do not have an adjustable suspension, but they've managed to find a single setting that just works. It has a nice, quiet, comfortable ride around town. It doesn't get harsh over bumps, potholes, speed humps in town, cracks in the pavement. Yet, when you throw it into a curve, it's got the athleticism that you might expect in a sporting crossover. It's like the magic universe of compromise has come into full form here. It just works. I'm very pleased with it. So it drives like luxury, and it feels like you spent your money wisely. Very rare in this class. It really, truly is. The last thing I like to talk about is value, and of course, a very subjective thing, a lot of opinion based on that, but I look at all the metrics that we've talked about, as well as things like options pricing, base price, how it stacks up to its competition. And in this segment, there's a lot of competitors, but the closest ones in my view are the Lexus NX, slightly smaller, and the Audi Q5, maybe slightly larger, the Q3 slightly smaller, sort of fits in between those two, but that is sort of the genre that we're playing in here. And when you look at the performance, the practicality, the quality, some of the things that I really sort of looked at here were quality. There's a few things that don't line up here and there when I look around the body. So just things like basic panel alignment could be better, but interior, one of the best in the business. So I wouldn't beat it up just because of that, but I always look at every little thing when it comes to talking about quality. Options pricing really was the big thing. There are a lot of little nickel and dime options here, and you saw some of those on your screen as we talked about the car, that on a Nissan Rogue, the very same things are half the price. So they're just jacking those things up for the sake of jacking them up, because in this showroom, you're probably just gonna go, whatever, I'll pay for it. But nonetheless, that plays into my value quotient, which comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we are at 4 stars for the review. Very good. If you like the video you just saw, I suggest you watch another one of mine right there, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.